The soft golden lights of the fine dining restaurant Ravello in Chicago cast shimmering reflections on the crystal glasses and pristine white tablecloths. The air was one of luxury, tinged with the scent of fine wine and the gentle clinking of cutlery. At a secluded corner table, a middle-aged man quietly took his seat. Salt and pepper hair, simple metal-rimmed glasses, an unremarkable grey suit. He looked like any ordinary guest seeking a quiet dinner. Not a single employee, not even the most seasoned veteran, recognized him as Noah Grant, the man who had poured his blood, sweat, and tears into building the five-star Ravello restaurant chain across America. Noah had returned unannounced, without any fanfare. He hadn't called the manager or informed the head chef. This trip wasn't to check on food quality or service etiquette. He was here to find the truth. 3 days ago, an anonymous email had landed in his personal inbox. Inside was disturbing evidence: falsified invoices, photos of staff smuggling out premium ingredients, and audio recordings of a plan to tarnish Ravello's reputation from within. The place he considered his second home, his life's legacy, was being hollowed out by the very people he trusted. He ordered a whiskey neat. His eyes scanned the restaurant. Everything seemed perfect, too perfect. The waiters smiled at the book, and the bartender shook his shaker with a flourish. But an unsettling feeling crept through the air. It felt like an elaborately staged play, and he was the only audience member who hadn't been given a script. He wasn't here as the owner, but as an invisible man, a ghost in the temple he had built. He needed to know who was behind this and why. This betrayal was too sophisticated, too malicious to be the impulsive act of a few greedy employees. As he was lost in thought, a young waitress approached his table. She said nothing, only silently placing a folded napkin next to his water glass. It was a completely normal gesture, yet Noah sensed something was off. He waited until she was gone before slowly unfolding the napkin. Inside, 6 words were scrawled in a rushed but firm hand with blue ink. "This is a trap. Don't react." Noah's heart tightened. He clenched the napkin in his palm. The trap was set, and he had just walked right into it. A cold chill ran down Noah's spine. A trap. The words echoed in his mind, drowning out the smooth jazz playing in the restaurant. He forced himself to remain calm, taking a sip of whiskey, but the liquor tasted bitter on his tongue. He began to observe more closely, not with the eyes of an owner, but of a man being hunted. And then he saw the anomalies he had previously missed. Everything was too perfect, so perfect, it was fake. The servers moved like programmed robots, their smiles never reaching their eyes. At the next table, a couple was dining. The man nodded in exaggerated approval of his steak, while the woman laughed precisely on cue. It didn't look like a date. It looked like a rehearsed scene. At the bar, a bartender he had never seen before acted deliberately clumsy, nearly dropping an expensive bottle of wine. Everything was orchestrated to create an impression of decline and unprofessionalism. An eerie feeling washed over Noah. He felt trapped in a twisted reality show where he was the unwitting main character. Every laugh, every small complaint, every sideways glance felt like a needle pricking his pride. This was Ravello, the place he'd spent his youth building, where every detail was polished with heart. Now it had been turned into a stage for some dirty scheme. He looked down at the napkin again, trying to get a better look at the handwriting. That script, it was so familiar. Quick, neat, with a slight rightward slant. He had seen it hundreds of times on reports, on memos. My God, it was Claire's handwriting. Claire, the restaurant manager he had mentored since she was a fresh-faced college graduate, the person who had been by his side for over 10 years, through thick and thin, the woman he had always considered a younger sister. If Claire was involved, she had either betrayed him or she was trying to save him. The words "don't react" were a warning, not a threat. She was here, and she was secretly helping him. A glimmer of hope sparked only to be extinguished by a more terrifying thought. If someone as close as Claire had to resort to this method to contact him, just how powerful and dangerous was his enemy? If Claire's involved, this isn't about business anymore. This is a war. Noah told himself, his hand balling into a fist under the table. The play began to accelerate. Just as Noah anticipated, an accident occurred. A waiter accidentally slipped, sending a full tray of red wine crashing onto a female guest's white dress. The woman let out a blood-curdling scream, loud enough to draw the entire restaurant's attention. Her expression wasn't one of embarrassment or anger, but of over-the-top theatrical panic. She shot to her feet, pointing at the fumbling waiter. "Oh my God, my designer dress. What kind of establishment are you people running?" Immediately whispers erupted from other tables. "Terrible service," one said. "This place has really gone downhill," another commented, already raising their phone. And in a matter of seconds, a guest at a corner table began a live stream, his phone aimed directly at the mess. The caption on the screen read, "Disaster at Ravello, Chicago. 5-star quality is a thing of the past." Noah felt waves of rage building in his chest. He wanted to stand up to scream that it was all an act. He wanted to expose the woman, the waiter, and the person live streaming. He wanted to protect his creation. But Claire's words echoed in his head, "Don't react." He took a deep breath, forcing himself to sit still, his hands clasped so tightly under the table that his nails dug into his skin. Staying calm right now was harder than facing a fire. Just then, Claire appeared. She stepped in to handle the situation with professional poise, her voice calm. She apologized to the guest, promised to cover all cleaning costs, and offered her another meal. Her eyes never met Noah's. Not a single glance, not a sign of recognition. She completely ignored his presence. As she turned to walk past his table, she made an almost imperceptible move. A small, folded piece of paper was placed gently beside the first napkin. As Claire walked past the decorative palm tree where Eli was standing, he didn't look at her, staring only at the chaos ahead, but his deep, cold voice was just loud enough for her to hear, "That's a beautiful hairpin, Claire, just like the one my mother used to have." Claire froze for a millisecond, her heart sinking. It was a veiled threat. He knew he was watching her, yet she maintained a calm facade and kept walking as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Noah waited until he was sure no one was looking, then quickly snatched the note. His heart pounded. He opened it under the table. "Cameras are everywhere. Most of them are actors, but I'm recording for you." A current shot through Noah's body. Claire hadn't betrayed him. She was his ally, a spy in the heart of the enemy's camp. She wasn't just warning him. She was gathering evidence. He was not alone in this fight. He lifted his head, his eyes sharp again. The play was still going on, but now he knew his part. With Claire's message in hand, Noah now saw everything through a different lens. He was no longer a passive victim, but a hunter, stalking his prey. He scanned the room, analyzing every face, trying to find the director behind the velvet curtain. He looked past the actors, playing their roles, as disgruntled customers, past the fake staff deliberately making mistakes. And then his eyes stopped. Behind a large decorative palm tree, a man was standing, holding a glass of wine, silently observing the entire scene. He wasn't sitting at any table. He just stood there, like a phantom. Something about his posture, the way he tilted his head, was painfully familiar. When he turned his face toward the light, Noah's heart stopped beating. That face, those eyes, that smug, self-satisfied smirk. It was Eli Dawson. Eli Dawson, his best friend. The man who started with him was from a small roadside diner, the co-founder of Ravello, the man who had been declared dead in the fire that burned their first branch on Lincoln Street to the ground 6 years ago. An icy shock shot from his heels to the top of his head. Noah felt the air being sucked out of his lungs. The fire that year had been a horrific tragedy. A body burned beyond recognition had been found, and all evidence pointed to it being Eli. Noah had mourned his friend and had tormented himself for not being there. He had lived for 6 years with the pain of losing his brother. And now that brother was standing there in the flesh in his restaurant, watching it be destroyed. Eli seemed to feel Noah's stare. He looked directly at him, across the crowd, across the chasm of 6 long years. Then he slowly raised his glass, a toast, a challenge. A smile played on his lips, the smile of a victor who already knew the outcome. At that moment, all the disparate pieces snapped together. The fire, the ambiguous death, this scripted sabotage. Noah clenched his wine glass. The feeling of betrayal colder than ice. A bitter thought screamed in his mind. You didn't die in that fire, did you, Eli? You were jealous of this spotlight, weren't you? You never accepted that I was the face of Ravello, even though you were its heart. And now you've come back to burn me to the ground. The shock was so immense, Noah felt dizzy. He stood up, stumbling towards the restroom and slamming the door shut. He looked at himself in the mirror. A man with salt and pepper hair, his eyes etched with fatigue and horror. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. He leaned down, splashing cold water on his face, trying to pull himself back from the brink of panic. Don't react. Claire's voice echoed in his head. He took a deep, shuddering breath, staring into his own eyes in the mirror. The shaking slowly subsided. Panic was replaced by a cold, hard resolve. He couldn't fall apart. Not now. Eli's performance reached its crescendo. Everything happened in a rapid-fire sequence, like a perfectly timed storm. A male guest at a middle table suddenly clutched his throat, his face turning red as he writhed and fell to the floor. His wife screamed hysterically, "Allergies. My husband is allergic to peanuts. Help instantly." At least 3 phones were pointed at the scene, live streaming the horrific food poisoning at Ravello. Simultaneously, a shout erupted from the kitchen. A chef, one of Eli's men, of course, was verbally abusing another staff member, creating the image of a toxic work environment. The drama didn't stop there. Another accident occurred when a server spilled a bowl of hot soup onto a customer's laptop. When the laptop was lifted, a dead cockroach was revealed underneath, as if it had just crawled out of the soup. The entire restaurant descended into a media hellscape. Screams, sobs, arguments, and the frantic clicking of keyboards from citizen journalists typing out sensational headlines. All eyes turned to Noah, waiting for him to lose control, waiting for an angry or flustered reaction to capture. Eli, from his corner, smirked triumphantly. He believed he had cornered Noah, but Noah did nothing. He didn't scream, he didn't run over, he simply stood up and adjusted his tie. Then he took out his phone, hit the live stream button, and filmed the entire scene. "Good evening," his voice cut through the chaos, shockingly calm. "I'm Noah Grant, the founder of Ravello. It seems we're having quite an eventful night." His composure stunned everyone, including Eli's actors. He pointed his camera at the man having the allergic reaction. This is terrible. However, the pan-seared salmon you just ate is completely peanut-free. In fact, that dish doesn't even exist on our menu tonight. He panned his camera to the kitchen, and that screaming chef, his name is Marcus. A wonderful man. But he can't scream because he lost his voice in a traffic accident 2 years ago. He communicates using sign language. Finally, he turned to the cockroach, a rather sloppy piece of staging. This cockroach has been dead and dry for a long time. There's no way it could have been in a bowl of hot soup. The restaurant fell silent. The actors started looking at each other in confusion. Eli was frozen, the smile on his face locked in place. And then Noah delivered the final blow. He played a short video on his phone, one he had just received from Claire. The video, secretly recorded 2 days prior, showed Eli in a parking lot handing cash to every single actor present in the restaurant that night. "This is what's really happening," Noah said, his voice like steel. "A paid performance to destroy us." The moment Noah's video exposed the conspiracy, a large screen behind the bar, normally used for sports games, flickered to life. A second live stream began, but from a completely different perspective. It was Claire's security camera footage. The screen showed Eli signaling the waiter to spill the wine. It showed him giving a subtle nod to the man to begin the allergy charade. It showed his smug smirk as the cockroach was planted. Every action, every directive, every deceitful glance from Eli was laid bare for the entire restaurant and thousands of online viewers to see. It was undeniable proof, capturing the entire setup from an employee's point of view. Claire had turned Ravello's own surveillance system into a weapon against its enemy. Eli was stunned, his face ashen. He knew he had lost. He turned to run, but it was too late. The main doors of Ravello burst open. A team of detectives and uniformed police officers swarmed in. "Eli Dawson, you're under arrest," an officer declared loudly. "You are being arrested for intentional destruction of property, corporate sabotage, and market manipulation." Eli was handcuffed on the spot. His actors, in a panic, tried to blend into the crowd, but were quickly detained by police for questioning. The curtain had fallen on the play swiftly and dramatically. Online, another storm erupted, but this time in the opposite direction. The hashtag #DoBoycottRavello was quickly buried by Respect Noah, Justice for Ravello, and Eli the Snake. The same people who had been cursing the restaurant moments ago were now praising Noah's calm and intelligence. His and Claire's live streams were shared at lightning speed, becoming a masterclass in crisis management. Ravello didn't just survive, its reputation was stronger than ever, now synonymous with integrity and resilience. Eli was cuffed and escorted past Noah. He stopped, his pale face now contorted with hatred. He hissed through clenched teeth, his voice dripping with venom. "You see, Noah, you always had it all. The spotlight, everyone's adoration. But in just one night, I could have taken it all from you. It should have been mine." Noah just looked at him, in silence, offering no reply. There was no satisfaction in his eyes, only a profound sadness for a dead friendship. He whispered loud enough only for himself to hear a final farewell to the past. "You were once the reason I started, but today, you're just the reason I'll come back stronger." When the last police car drove away carrying Eli and the remnants of the night's deceit, an unusual silence fell over Ravello. The real staff, who had endured a terrifying night, began to clean up quietly. No words were exchanged, but an invisible bond was forming between them. They had defended their home together. Noah walked slowly around the restaurant. The messy tables, the shattered glass, the wine stain on the floor. It looked like a battlefield, but he didn't see ruin. He saw a new beginning. He stepped outside, looking up at the Ravello sign still shining brightly in the Chicago night. It had weathered the storm. Just like him. Claire was standing at the door, exhausted, but with a fire in her eyes. She was about to say something, an apology for her secrecy or an explanation. But Noah just shook his head and smiled softly. No words were necessary. He understood everything. He walked up to her, pulling a key from his jacket pocket. It wasn't an office key. It was the master key, the one that could open every door in the restaurant, the ultimate symbol of operational control. He didn't hold a ceremony or give a formal speech. He simply placed the key in Claire's palm. "You run the floor now," he said, his voice deep and warm. "Truth is, you already have been." Claire stared at the key, then looked up at Noah, her eyes welling up. She couldn't speak, just nodded slightly, trying to hold back the tears. She was choked with emotion, not because of the promotion or the honor. She was emotional because after all the doubt and conspiracy, what she received was absolute trust. It was a gift, more precious than any title. In Noah's world, where trust had just been shattered, the act of giving this key meant more than 1,000 words. It was the first brick in rebuilding a foundation of trust stronger than ever before. A few days later, after the dust had settled, Noah sat in his office. Not the lavish one at headquarters, but a small room in the back of Ravello, Chicago. There were no stage lights, no professional cameras, just his phone propped up on a stack of books. He hit a record. He looked directly into the lens, unscripted, unpolished. His face showed the lines of fatigue, but his eyes were clear and steady. "Hello, everyone," he began, his voice sincere. "Over the past few days, a lot of people have asked me how you get through a betrayal like that. How you stand tall when it feels like the whole world is against you." He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. "The truth is, I don't have a perfect answer. But I know this: your reputation can be stolen overnight. Your money can be lost. But your character, the values you stand for, no one can take that away from you unless you let them." He looked down, then up again, his gaze seeming to pierce through the screen, to speak to each person individually. If you have ever been misunderstood, ever been judged unfairly, if you've ever been stabbed in the back by a person you trusted most, if you've ever been condemned before you even had a chance to speak, I want you to know you are not alone. He said nothing more. There was only silence. He ended the video and posted it to his personal page, without any caption. Immediately below the video, the comments began to pour in. They weren't words of praise or adoration. There were whispers from all over the world. "Me too. I hear you. Thank you. I was there once too. You are not alone. That saved me today. I believe you." Ravello hadn't just survived. It had been reborn. It was no longer a brand of luxury food, but a symbol of truth, of mended trust, of unbreakable character. And Noah Grant was no longer just a restaurant tycoon. He had become a voice for the silent, for those who found strength not in revenge, but in quiet dignity and a belief in themselves. Ultimately, Noah's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the inner strength we find in the eye of the storm. It reminds us that while a reputation can be shaken, our character is an impenetrable fortress. In a world full of noise, maintaining your calm and holding on to the truth is the greatest victory of all. Do you have a story about rebuilding trust from the ashes? Share it with us, and don't forget to subscribe to Toch Story to listen and heal our souls together.